Good evening and welcome to the September 1st, 2022 Parks and Recreation Commission regular video meeting. I am Jody McCarthy, Parks and Recreation Commission Chair. In accordance with Proclamation 20-28.10 and the Governor's Extended Safe Start Order, tonight's Parks and Recreation Commission meeting is using video conferencing technology provided by Zoom. The Zoom video of this meeting is being recorded and will broadcast live via Zoom and will be uploaded to the city's YouTube channel later this evening. City staff and consultant guests are participating in tonight's meeting remotely. Other public audience members are listening to the meeting by telephone or via the internet. Additionally, the city has opened up the community center to provide a public space for viewing and participating in the meeting. Welcome to all and thank you for joining us tonight. Commissioners, please turn on your microphones. Will the city staff please call the roll?
Chair McCarthy.
Here.
Vice Chair Struck.
Here.
Commissioner Cohen.
Here.
Commissioner Westberg.
Here.
Commissioner Markson.
Here.
Commissioner Burstein.
Here.
And Commissioner Hay.
Here. Commissioners, before we start the business of tonight's meeting, here are a few rules to help the meeting to run smoothly. If a commissioner has a question, please use the raise hand feature. I will do my best to recognize commissioners in the order in which hands are raised. Everyone will be asked to limit themselves to one question and to one clarifying question if necessary, so that each commissioner has a chance to ask a question before a commissioner is given another chance to ask a question. Additionally, prior to speaking, please state your name for those listening in on the meeting. Tonight's agenda will not include in-person public appearances in accordance with the Proclamation 20-28.11 and the Governor's Extended Safe Start Order. I believe that we do not have any public appearances for tonight. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move on to our first order of business, which is a department report and update. And we're going to welcome Recreation Manager Ryan Daly.
Good evening, Parks and Recreation Commission. I hope you all missed me as much as I missed you over the last month. I do have a quick report to share with you over some projects and whatnot that we had going over the last month. So with that, I will share my screen, which is always touch and go. All right, let me know if that's showing up for you. All right, perfect. Off and running. Look at that playground. Question is if my slides will advance. There we go. So just a quick recap. Gosh, summer celebration seems so long ago, but that's close to the last time we met. Just to give you a quick recap, it was a huge success. It went very well. It was hosted on July 9th at Mercerdale and Luther Burbank Parks. It was a scaled back version. We did hear that from people asking questions. It was a scaled back version from previous years. But we had lots of entertainment, food trucks, the touch-a-truck, the community booths, those community partners that stepped up to host booths on the street were just outstanding. And of course, the fireworks. It was a great show this year off the banks there at Luther Burbank. And so that went very well. Also, we did bring in $46,650 in total revenue. And our expenses remained under budget at $80,000. And so that was a really positive outcome for us. And as you all know, that's been a real focus for the division as we've moved forward with the cost recovery program. So moving forward, just to continue that recap, we received overwhelmingly positive feedback from the community. We did a survey, received 99 participants, which completed that survey, with the majority of those being Mercer Island residents. And some of the key takeaways, and I'm happy to share this report with the commission later, we'll give you a little bit of insight of to where we may be heading in the future, but The fireworks and the touch a truck were by far the two best items that we offered. Huge success there. We need more food options. We saw great crowds, and we had a couple food trucks no show, run out of food, and also cancel last minute. And that was 3 food trucks in total, which was about half of them. So that was a real big impact. We'll be addressing that in future years. And then we did receive requests for additional youth activities or activities in general, being carnival style or yard games, as well as bouncy houses and that kind of thing. But we're going to review whether or not that's a direction we'll go in the future. We obviously heard things about the parade and a wish to return. And so we're going to be working with some community partners and seeing if that's not something that we can pull off in the future year or years. And then, what I'm probably most proud of is the really high ratings we received on the interactions with staff as well as parking. Our staff, and if you were at Summer Celebration this year, you would have noticed all of the leadership team was in attendance. So your department directors, you had a lot of the managers present, and it was a great opportunity for us to engage with the community, which obviously they were looking for, and it just turned out really, really well. Probably partway through this festival, we already started planning for next year. So we're really excited to get rolling. We're having internal staff meetings over the next month to start planning those 2023 dates. And so those will be coming out probably in the next month. So you all can put that on your calendars and save that date. And I cannot say enough about our sponsors. I mentioned our total revenue. Well, here it is. $43,650 came from this group of sponsors. Outstanding support. They're all community partners with us. And so it really added to the feel of the event. And I just can't say enough of how much our team is appreciative of them as well as the community. We heard great feedback and support for our sponsors. So again, thank you to all of those that participated and supported the event. All right, a couple of park project updates. The boiler building stabilization. Paul likes to call it the boiler building. I'm a little more classy. I'm more of a boathouse guy because that's where we run our summer programs out of. But this is a project that is in our capital improvement program. The project has been ranked in the Washington Historical Society's capital budget request. This is huge. This is a grant opportunity of $513,000, which is 1/3 of the project cost. And this project includes seismic stabilization, reducing the chimney height, installing framework with inside the building, as well as some minor electrical work and repairing the roof. If you've been in there when it's raining, it's a bit damp at times. So this is a great project to see moving forward. This has been something that's been on our radar for a number of years. A huge thank you to the Mercer Island Historical Society. They were a great support in sending letters and just moving things forward to get this funding request. And we'll know more in the coming months when they finalize the state budget. Construction is anticipated to take place in fall of 2023. Lincoln Landing, another street end location on the north end of 76th Avenue Southeast. It's about halfway done. We've renovated the stream and the beach is complete as well. And it's looking really good. The sewer work and pathways and landscaping, those are sort of the final items that we need to complete. And we're expecting the project to be substantially completed by the end of October. Mercerdale Playground. How can we not talk about this one? The ribbon cutting, thank you to all who attended. It was outstanding. The park sees a ton of usage. We're seeing a lot of people out there, but we're not done yet. And it's important to emphasize there are some punch list items that need to be completed. Northwest Playground they'll need to close the playground for about a day in late September to finish some of the equipment replacements, some cosmetic details, signage, and install a final bench as well. There is a park sign that previously stated, and thank you, Chair McCarthy, and everybody who chimes in and lets us know about these issues that are popping up. But there was a sign that was inaccurate out there, a previous sign that stated the playground was for ages 2 to 5, when in actuality it's from 2 to 12 years old. So that sign is being replaced, and that's extremely helpful because we want to reduce any confusion that takes place out on that facility. We're jumping around a little bit. Come on, there we go. South Mercer Playfields. Just as a reminder, this is a city and school district joint project. The school district is the project manager. This began back in July with completion scheduled for this November. The project will convert field number 3 and number 4 to synthetic turf and install lights and replace the turf on fields numbers 1 and 2. The turf on fields 1, 2, and 3 has reached the end of its useful life. And if you had been out there and kind of noticed, you'd see the restitching of home plate that's taken place over the years, as well as the pitcher's mound and a couple of the base areas. So this was really needed. There are some impacts. It's extremely challenging for some of our field users with that large of a facility being taken down, specifically in soccer season. So we've had to relocate some of those groups and kind of shift things around from where we've been over the past 10 years while these fields have been operational. And so thank you to those groups with their flexibility and their willingness to wait this out, because it is going to be a great opportunity once we get this field open in November, when it'll be raining, but we'll have turf out there. So the kids will stay nice and clean and save all of our cars, all of the mud that goes along with those grass fields. We did run into a challenge with receiving the light poles. That was a supply chain issue. So though it doesn't look like, it looks like things are a bit stagnant out there right now on the construction front, but once those poles are in place, they'll be able to move forward much quicker. All right, this is something I'm extremely proud of. I just want to share with all of you. It has been a great summer. We had the return of summer celebration. We had the Mercerdale ribbon cutting that we talked about, the Kirk Robinson Skate Park dedication. We've had over 1,500 participants in Recreation Division summer camps. We ran 5 mostly music in the park concerts, 19 Shakespeare in the park shows, 117 picnic rentals, 22 permitted special events in our parks, 3,777 hours of athletic field rentals, 31 special events at the community center, and over 2,700 drop-in sports attendees. When you start to pull the numbers and you look at all of the things that your Parks and Recreation Department offers, this is really impressive for where we are and what we rebuilt. So I just wanted to share that with you. It's just been an outstanding summer. Staff, I believe, feels we're a little tired. I'll give you that, but we're really feeling energized with where we're headed in the future. And this is a great way to show that to the community. Though it has been a beautiful summer, it has been warm, and there are things that you're seeing in your parks. And we've talked to a few of our parks commissioners, as well as some members of the public. And I just want to touch on a few things that you're seeing out there. And I think this photo highlights some of that pretty well. You have over 400 acres of parkland, and the vast amount don't have automated irrigation systems. The parks that do are pretty aged. You're talking about 20 to 30-year-old irrigation systems. And we do spend, our team, the parks maintenance team, spends a lot of time on irrigation repairs through the spring and through the fall. Some of the trees, grasses and plantings, you will see they are distressed a bit by the drought that's currently going on. We're not seeing the rainfall we had in probably previous years, and this is about the 4th straight year of these types of temperatures and these types of challenges. And you'll see in the picture there, you can see some of the leaves and whatnot changing. And what trees and shrubs do is they go dormant when they're stressed. And we're seeing that in some of our areas of our parks, that the heat is stressing them, so they're going dormant a bit earlier. And that protects themselves, and they generally rebound in following years. What are we doing about this? How are we combating these drought conditions? Our staff focuses a lot of time, as I mentioned earlier, on irrigation resources. But we primarily focus those irrigation resources on those active use areas, such as athletic fields, And the non-active areas such as immature plantings or ornamental plantings that are in some of our park areas. And that's where we're really focused on establishing those plants. We replace dead trees with native, more drought tolerant species. And we repair the irrigation systems, and we're trying to catch up on that deferred maintenance. As I said, 20 to 30-year-old systems, they're going to have challenges. And we have literally probably miles of pipes in our ground that have to be repaired at certain points of that time. We do use manual watering methods for those immature plantings that don't have access to the irrigation system. But water is an expensive resource, and we're really diligent about where we're using that water, and staff labor is really expensive as well. So manual watering is extremely inefficient, and with the size of our park system and that amount of acres, it's really not practical to focus on that utilization of manual methods. Our crews are out regularly monitoring and evaluating the areas that may need supplemental attention. But again, we do have a large park system, and it is challenging to manually water that many acres or address all of the challenges that may be out there. So with that, I would like to invite any questions that may be on. Jason is on to be able to assist in answering any of those. And with that, I will pass it back to you, Chair McCarthy.
Thank you. I see that Craig has his hand up.
Yes, Councilmember Reynolds here. Just a few quick questions. One, the boiler building, I understand we're on this ranked list, but I don't have any sense of how likely we are to get it, or, you know, where are we? How much money do they have? How much money has been asked for? Where are we in the rank?
I'll invite Jason or Paul if they would like to chime in there. I believe it's somewhere around 30 projects, but I'll leave it to them.
Yeah, Paul West, CIP project manager. We are ranked on the list at about 22 out of 30 projects. The request to the state legislature will be $10 million. And if the Washington State Historical Society gets that, then we will be funded. It's usually an effort that includes a lobbying component, and we are already on top of that. We're planning to work with our lobbying group, as well as possibly the Washington State Trust for Historic Preservation on this. So it's pretty likely we'll get it.
Is it something we should be encouraging community members to write in to our legislators about, or?
There probably is a role for that at some point. And I'll say that Mercer Island Historical Society is a powerhouse. When they ask for letters, they get them. So when the time comes, I think we have a good resource in that regard. Okay.
Can I sneak in two more quick ones, or would you rather I pass, Chair?
If they're really quick.
Okay, really quick. One, the 2,700 people of drop-ins struck me as 30 a day or so. Still not a huge number. Is that typical or pandemic driven that it's that low?
My answer would be that's summer. That's in general, we don't see that many drop-in activities in the summer, or drop-in participants. You see those participants taking their activities outside. It's still a strong showing, but it is rather limited. But we also run summer camps in the gym, so you're seeing limited hours during that period as well. Okay, and then the last one, the age 2 to 12 of Mercerdale, is that what it's designed for, or what it's allowed for? Like, should we be telling 14-year-olds to go away?
That's the Jason Kenner, Public Works Director, Chief of Operations. That is the appropriate age range in which case we on that equipment. If you have a 14-year-old who's playing equipment, it is not recommended for kids above 12. The recommended age is 2 to 12. That's the appropriate age for the equipment that's out at that facility.
Okay. Alrighty, thank you.
So to follow up on that, are we saying no to tiny 14-year-olds, or that's just the suggested age?
suggested age. It's a recommendation. I will say I have seen older parents, grandparents, things like that, kids out on playground, guys shaking his hand. Yes. So it is the recommended age for the playground.
Got it. Commissioner Westberg. You're on mute.
Two quick questions too, one for Paul. West, are the changes that we envision, or how limited are we due to the historical character of the boiler building to the changes that we can do with this project and with any subsequent money that may be coming to us?
The boiler building is not designated or registered historic building. We are not limited, but we are trying to maintain the historical character of the building. We're trying to not put stuff on the facade or change the brickwork. And we've limited the amount that we need to lower the smokestack. We really want to keep that as tall as possible because that's the cool thing about the building.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering specifically, is the smokestack and how that.
Yeah. The reason we have to take the top 10 feet off is the top 10 feet are unreinforced masonry. The rest of the smokestack, it has a concrete structure inside it, but the top 10 feet is just brick, and it would fall over in a second in any moderate earthquake.
Okay, thank you. And then just a quick question for Ryan. A very impressive list of activities and accomplishments for this summer. I was just curious, do you have any idea how that stacks up against pre-COVID levels, or are we back?
We're back. I'll tell you that is pretty darn close to what I'll call it a typical summer. What's not typical were the numbers of picnic rentals. Those went up significantly, which is outstanding. And the reason is it's automated process and it's the ability for people to book online. And it's just been outstanding. We added the Dean's Children's Playground picnic shelter there as well. And partway through the summer, and instantly saw people booking that up. So a lot of this and all, this group spent so much time on the recreation reset exercise. This is demonstrating that it worked really, really well. Our park permitting, our rentals at the community center started a bit slow and then started to really take off. And you're going to see some of that really successful in the fall. So I'm excited to come back and present those numbers as we move forward as well. So we're back.
Great, thank you. Okay, so let's move on to our next item of regular business, which is to review and consider approving the minutes from the July 7th, 2022 meeting. Commissioners, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 7th, 2022 meeting, please?
I move that we accept the minutes of the July 7th, 2022 meeting.
And is there a second?
I will second that motion.
Thank you. All right, so there is a motion by Commissioner Burstein and a second by Commissioner Westberg. Commissioners, do we have any questions or comments before we vote? I'm seeing none. Commissioners, please turn on your microphones, and will the city staff please conduct a roll call?
Chair McCarthy,
Aye.
Vice Chair Strupp,
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen,
Aye.
Commissioner Westberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Markson,
Aye.
Commissioner Burstein,
Aye.
Commissioner Hay.
Aye. All right, the motion passes and the minutes are approved. Our third item is the public art donation proposal, and we're going to welcome back Ryan Daly, Recreation Manager.
Thank you, Chair McCarthy. Before I hand it off to Guy and Laura from Burger Partnership, I'll just introduce this very quickly. Some of you may recall that on July 20th, we presented to the Arts Council, a potential opportunity for a donation. And I just want to clarify a couple of things as we go into the presentation. One, this is not a city project. This is not identified in any capital budgets or anything like that. This is a community member who's coming forth with an opportunity, a potential opportunity, seeking the Parks and Recreation Commission as well as the Arts Council feedback to see if they should continue toward a design. And so Guy and Laura are going to talk about that here during the presentation. The other thing I want to highlight is that this project would potentially be taking place in Aubry Davis Park, which is not owned by the city. This is a WashDOT property. So anything that goes forward has to be approved by them. And I just want to make sure that we're clear about that before we move forward. And then staff hasn't had a chance, and because there isn't an actual donation on the table, we haven't evaluated any impacts from what that donation may be, whether it be financial, operational, or otherwise. So those are things sort of yet to come as we move forward. And what you'll hear tonight is sort of a concept and idea that you're going to be asked to provide feedback and reply to. So as kind of looking at the long term or the long goal, if a donation was to be proposed to come forward, that would come to the Parks and Recreation Commission as well as the Arts Council sort of separately. You'd review and you would decide if you wanted to make a recommendation to the City Council for acceptance. The donation would then go to City Council and they would make that ultimate decision on whether or not to accept. So with that and all of those clarifying points, I would love to introduce Guy and Laura from Burger Partnership and hand it over to them. Welcome.
Thanks for having us. Thanks to the whole commission for having us. Laura's going to do most of the presenting tonight. I'm going to chime in with color commentary, but I did want to just start off with just saying, so I'm a landscape architect. Our firm is a landscape architecture firm, and we get to work on an amazing scale of projects. We did the Luther Burbank master plan way back in the day. But my favorite projects are frequently not the biggest. And this is one of those favorite projects for me. If it's a favorite project now, whether or not it becomes real, I love it because it's soulful, it's modest, and I think it can have a lot of meaning for the community. So we've thoroughly enjoyed working on this. We'll present it. I'll be excited to hear your feedback or thoughts on it. And with that said, Laura, take it away, but know that I will indeed chime in and interrupt rudely at appropriate or inappropriate times.
Cool. Let me get my screen shared here. All right. Can I get a thumbs up that we can see? Okay, cool. Yeah, awesome. So as Ryan mentioned, we have had a community member step forward with a desire to do something incredibly meaningful in the form of an opportunity that aims to enhance Mercer Island's open space while providing for the community on an emotional level. This whole project has stemmed from their personal discovery of a need for a public space that really inspires, whether that be through individual introspection or having a place to come together. When we were first introduced to the project opportunity, our eyes were opened to a community in need that even though Mercer Island is a society of abundance, there is a surprising amount of struggle. And that juxtaposition is worth taking note of. Our donor is heartbreakingly intimately close with the trend of mental health struggles and burdens that are prevalent on the island. It is because of their experience, their tragedy, that a community in need has become a catalyst to create a physical space that welcomes all people to gather, center themselves, find solace, humor, whatever it may be in their day-to-day life. Particularly now, as we work to pull ourselves out of a pandemic, we all know the past couple of years have been hard. Disease management literally created a culture of apartness. And now we have a goal, a desire to create togetherness and give ourselves the opportunity to retrain our ability to engage. So this proposal you're about to see looks at how we address those themes, but first, we need a site. The Aubry Davis Lid Park Stacks. I'm sure you are all pretty familiar with this spot. When we were first visited this location, the potential of the space was, as us being landscape architects and always looking for these types of things, glaring at us in the face. It is truly an underutilized space begging for purpose in the heart of the community. There is power in this place. It is a hidden discovery perched up on a higher elevation with views. However, it's uninspired and frankly feels unnatural given the obvious infrastructure, but it has powerful scale and is cherished. One of the most striking things to our donor was the fact that they often see people out here deep in conversation, and there's potential to foster that environment. Yeah, so when looking at the location, we wanted to make sure that we are consistent within the goals of the Aubry Davis Lid Park Master Plan, and I'll hand it off to Guy to talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, all through this, we know that you've been through a significant process looking at all of Aubry Davis. And so everything we do, we want to make sure is consistent with those efforts. And just, a thought on placemaking and hierarchy. And we'll talk about the specific site on the next slide. But I think when we look at Aubry Davis, it's a trail, it's a connection through Mercer Island, it's a connection within Mercer Island. There's, all these different activities along the way. There's all these eddies. It's pretty pastoral in nature, wonderfully green. But when we think about parks and we think about placemaking, we think of it a little bit like volume. In some places that volume is really low, and in some places you deliberately try to choose the volume up. So I'm going to make up a volume here. Most of the time when I'm thinking of Aubry Davis, I feel like the volume is like 3 or 4. It's there. It's wonderful to hear. You're moving through it. You're hanging out there and you're experiencing it. But there are places where we can turn that volume up higher. The downtown sculpture park is already one of those places. And so as we think about placemaking, we think there is this opportunity at this site that this is one of those sites where we can do a little more placemaking, where we can create a little more there. And we can turn that volume up a little bit. So we think that's this opportunity in the global perspective. And when we zoom in on the site, next slide, we're mindful of the overall vision, the core tenets. I'm not going to read the slide to you, that's painful, but I will say provide welcoming and inclusive spaces to express and experience creativity. I hope that you're going to see that this project does that. And then specific to the Aubry Davis lid, is the idea of play and interact, pulled straight from the master plan. Interactive installations that engage play and encourage all ages to engage. So hopefully after you see our proposal, you'll agree that it is accomplishing the placemaking guidelines set forth in the master plan.
Yeah, and after digging into the master plan even further, it was clear that the stacks were consistently identified as an asset to the park. You can see here these quotes highlight the opportunity associated with the infrastructure and the underutilized space, focusing on themes we've already looked at, such as gathering and immersiveness. Some other feedback not pictured here included creating something iconic with the stacks, and that they could be a focal point and a draw for people, which is exactly where we'd start. It starts with the stacks. They're an opportunity hiding in plain sight. The sheer scale of them draws you in when you're close, but to really become a focal point, we need color. This is an early diagram to show the impact bold color can have on these massive infrastructure elements.
And this is a place I need to chime in because color is such an interesting thing. And as a designer, we are challenged with it all the time. Color is literally the most subjective thing in the world. Everyone on this call has their own favorite color. They are not going to all be the same. None of you is right. None of you is wrong. I like to think I have the corner on color selection, but what we can agree on is that, well, it's subjective and it's universal different opinions. Everyone universally does love color. And what I can also say is when we use color on projects, it is typically much talked about, but ultimately becomes the most beloved part of our proposal. And so We think it's really important to use color here, to use it really deliberately. What you're seeing is not just a splashing of primary colors on different stacks, but the idea of some deliberate sort of curated colors, the idea that colors can be curated, multiple colors on a stack and transition from one to the other. So there's a richness and a variety within the stack, but that the whole of the stacks and the family of colors also work together amongst all the different stacks. So we think color is such an opportunity here. It is such a simple move. And you'll notice we're keeping the bases dark. Keep the color up top, but also we know that the bases, we can already see it in the pictures that have been presented, they get tagged, they get damaged. And so the idea of like unapologetic letting those be dark, let them be a material that can actually be managed, maintained much easier. Let the color live up top. We love color. It'll be super fun. I promise.
Yeah, and the next piece of the puzzle comes with words. One word used powerfully to create a magnetic element to engage someone's curiosity and pull them in. Now, when thinking about the meaning of this place and what we were trying to achieve by giving people a place to just be, words became the story. This collection of words, for example, evoke a feeling, but that story grows when the power of a word is born from thought. This collection of quotes, taking into account author and era diversity, is to show the themes of the power of thought. Above the quote is a single word that may or may not be directly in that quote, but it encapsulates the narrative and the feeling that the author was trying to convey.
And this was just kind of a sampling of what that could be, not what it needs to be or what it should be. And there's certainly time to delve more into this. And one of the things that this does not convey, but it's one of the things that the proponent of this project reminded us of is like, well, we're not trying to have this be is a place that's like too heavy either. And so we don't want to just have heavy or deeply thoughtful quotes and words. We actually want to have a light, kind of a lightness to this. We want to be welcoming humor and serendipity as well. She was actually bringing up a bunch of quotes by Mark Twain that just had us busting at the seams. So while that piece of humor and serendipity isn't in this slide, we do want that to be part of this project.
Yeah. So we are proposing wrapping the base of the stacks with quotes of a common theme at a human scale level, all relating to that powerful single word up above. So all of a sudden, with the introduction of the words, those stacks become pillars of something special, representative, meaningful. They become something to explore, something to touch and interact with. And that brings us—
I want to chime in on something here real quick, Laura. You can go back a slide.
Yeah, 1 second.
So, so a good park experience works, on a number of layers. Look what we've done. I'm sorry about that, Laura. So it's just this idea, wait a minute, there's that big thing there. Wait a minute, I'm not even there yet, but I see color. I'm intrigued. I'm going to invest this a little bit more. Wait a minute, now I see a big word. Now I'm really intrigued. It's this idea, this procession that with each step closer, the experience actually becomes richer. And so to actually get right up there and then sort of be like, well, what's with that word? But then to sort of unlock the puzzle of this poem, this haiku, this quote, whatever it is. And I do want to point out, we love the idea of Braille being on there as well. There's a magical thing about Braille. I mean, at least for a lot of people I know, and certainly for me, is I don't read Braille, but anytime I see a sign, I kind of end up running my fingers over it just to feel it, which is actually not, I don't think, how you read Braille. But it has this tactile quality to it. It's not just inclusive in appearance, but it makes you want to touch it. And that's why we love this picture of the prayer wheels here, where it's the patina where everyone touches it. So that's this idea of it starts big with color. It kind of draws you in more with the word. And then when you get there, it gets richer and richer and more rewarding, the whole experience.
So that effort of getting closer brings us to a new layer of discovery, which is one within the site itself. So we know the scale of the stacks draws you into the space, but once inside, there are three that really become the internal focus. These three just really feel like the strongest opportunity when you're out there, and you want to move around and through them. The surrounding background stacks are critical to provide that full impact, but really the three feature stacks are the heart of the proposal and where we would want to introduce the meaningful interaction. Orientation is key. So as a user walks through the space, we wanted them to circulate around these feature stacks and be guided onward to the next one. So say you're engaging with this one, you would walk around and see another one, and that's directing you forward and onward. These journeys are circuitous, and no matter where you land at a point of convergence, and you'll see this becomes a spot for gathering in a minute here. The pathways would be simple stepping stones leading the users through the site, but they also become a tool to emphasize our story and promote connection by being enriched with word and thought. And the last layer becomes the need for amenity, having a place to sit, stand, gather, play, and they evolved from the need for forms that worked within that journey to accommodate multiple needs, including that of the need to get planting in here. We can't forget that we are on a lid, and there's obviously infrastructure and structural things to be aware of. So having constructed platforms that don't add too much significant weight, and while also housing above ground planters to grow trees, ultimately provide shade and provide more intimate areas, because those trees bring a ceiling that adds a bit of a human scale to the project. So we'll look at a rendering here in a second, but this is a plan view of how these amenity forms take shape. And this diagram is showing how a user might use this space to reflect, relax, take time on their own or with another. All of those little pink dots are people. If you remember that point of convergence in the pathway journey, we've utilized that point in space is what we like to call the council ring, a circular bench seating area that can be used for passive interactions. But knowing that the space is not only about the introspection and reflection for individuals, this diagram shows how a group might use the space to convene. An open lawn space for people to gather with the platform amenity right here gives the opportunity for a small stage of sorts if needed. So here's an overall perspective of that largest amenity piece, and it's a little easier to understand than a plan view. You can see you're here situated within the journey. We've got the stacks happening back here that you're moving through and around. You've got a platform stage, which for group things or to lounge. We've got a ramp on the side for accessibility, plus kids are going to be running all over, up and down. And then that central point of convergence, that council ring right here. And now if we look at it from the other side, you get a view of that open lawn space to really keep that open field available for play, but also as a place to gather as a group. And then this is the last little perspective here. It really shows an intimate scale with those trees and just a place to breathe, a place to be once you're within this area. So what's next?
So that is this idea that we have, and what we hope to do today and going forward is confirm community support. Again, we had what we think was a really positive meeting with the Arts Commission. We're excited to hear your thoughts on this today, and if there's if we feel like that there's support for the idea, we'll continue to work with the donor and hone donation details. Key of that being how much do we want to donate? How much of this idea can we make happen? I should say that the whole thing this whole proposal is very much designed to be able to be really nimble, to be phased. We don't have to do the whole idea. It is not contingent upon additional monies being done, but if it gained support and other people wanted to give money and grow it, great. But that it would be our next step, is if there's support for the concept to come in and keep figuring out those details. And then, as I said several times already, is then we have to coordinate with the city, and Ryan and the city team can kind of help us and you understand what that process looks like, but also really continuing to hone the idea with WashDOT. And I should say, it's not an accident. We do a lot of work with WashDOT. We've done a lot of work on lids. We understand usually what their issues are. And really, this whole thing is designed to be a very applied intervention on top of the lid. There is nothing integral here. There is nothing structural here. And in the ultimate sort of guarantee, this whole thing could be applied and could all be picked up and taken away if it proved to be problematic or of any sort of concern. And that lies at the heart of the design as well. So with that said, we'd love to hear your thoughts. And, you know, ultimately, we hope it's an idea that you support, because we just think it could be an amazing thing for the community.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to open it up. And first of all, I just wanted to say, Sarah, I know that you had sent some comments. Did you want to speak now, or?
Yeah, thanks. Let me actually just remind, pull up my email. First of all, the presentation was really helpful to get a feeling for what you were picturing. I appreciated it. I did look through the slides, and I think it's a really amazing idea, and it would be really beautiful. And the only thoughts I had when I was looking at it is that, given how, to me, that there's a lot, it's not easy to get open space on Mercer Island or in the city of Seattle in general, right? Just general open space, is if it was possible to move some of the circulation planters and seating area like a little towards, skewed to one side or another, which now that I've heard you talk, I see that would be like counter to the whole design. But if we could move it to an area to keep some of the open space a little more open, like if you picture people playing Frisbee or playing soccer while people are sitting on the seating area, you know, like just to leave a little more open space. That was one thought. And these might be premature. So now that I hear the order of way things will happen. And then
these are great comments and appreciated. Totally get it. You're just seeing this for the first time. So reaction is good.
Okay. And then the only other thing was the paver, like putting in paver paths. Like visually, I thought, oh, that's so cool. And then I thought, yeah, it may like actually break up the space more than it would connect it, like by making it seem like this is where you should walk, and otherwise, if you don't walk here, it's in the wrong space or something like that. So those are only two thoughts. They certainly shouldn't be anything that, all in all, I'm totally in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Vice Chair Struck. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yes, Vice Chair Struck. I was wondering if, Ryan mentioned at the outset that the Arts Council had this presentation back in July and had a similar discussion. And I was wondering if it would be valuable for Ryan to just maybe kind of highlight some of the conclusions or thoughts that the Art Council had before we kind of begin our full-scale discussion.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair Struck, for teeing that up. And I'll ask Laura and Guy to jump in as well. I think, the Arts Council demonstrated a lot of support for this project to move forward toward a design. Enthusiastically, I would say, actually. I think some of their concern may be similar to Commissioner Markson and some of the points she brought up. Color seemed to be one of the concerns, which Guy spoke about earlier. You know, some of the other questions that arose were in the master plan. It was this location was talked about to be a dog park or a potential one, but you know, going back to that master planning process and actually what it says in the master plan, there were voices for and against. So it wasn't anything that was necessarily set in stone that obviously needs more evaluation. So those were some of the questions that came up from that group. I think there was some concern over adding any additional impervious surface, which is always a question that comes up. The seating area and the weight or the potential of WashDOT not allowing was maybe a concern that they might have, but we haven't gone through the conversations with WashDOT yet to know those answers. So Guy or Laura, is there anything I'm kind of forgetting or leaving off?
That was a good summary. I would say just, an overwhelming sense of gratitude from them too for the donor to come forward. But also there was some talk about what goes on those quotes and bases and various diversity elements. So keeping that in mind as we move forward.
I think additionally, one of the things that was starting to come out in that conversation with the Arts Council was also what are we or is this group or that group, what are they going to be able to put forward as suggestions to the project? I think that hasn't necessarily been narrowed down yet. Where is the donor willing to take some community feedback or feedback from the board, and maybe where are they digging their heels in, and this is the meaningful project that they want to put forward. So that, you know, those were some of the questions I think that arose.
Thank you, Ryan. Commissioner Westberg.
Thank you. This is Commissioner Westberg. So after looking through the slide show that was provided to us in our packet and then watching it again, I had just jotted down some immediate reactions, which I'm just going to throw out. They're no more than that. One was, I thought it was a super interesting concept and really attractive. It totally transforms a largely utilitarian space into something really special. It's way better than a dog park. That in addition to being, it's worth noting, I think, that in addition to being a special place in Aubry Davis Park, the trail is part of the Mountains to Sound Greenway, which has its own kind of special significance. And so I'm not aware of another place like this along the Greenway that's intended for gathering inspiration, that sort of thing. So that I thought that was pretty cool, a pretty cool concept. I did have concerns, as Sarah did, about the at least as depicted, the size of the gathering areas and the planting areas. I think those would be sort of a major impact on the site and would present some maintenance issues and upkeep issues down the road. I tried to imagine what that would look like 10 years from now, particularly depending on the materials that were used and things like that. So, but the concept of having a place where people could gather and talk and whatever, I think is part and parcel of the whole design, and it's pretty interesting. And finally, I thought, you know, as we were looking at it, I thought it would almost totally have to be done through donation, because we have so many park needs on our capital improvement project lists that I can't see this one jumping to the top simply because there's a donor willing to fund part of it. So those are my immediate thoughts.
Thank you. Commissioner Hay.
Thanks. That was a really nice presentation. Thank you for sharing that. And this is a really lovely concept, and I really like the meaning behind it. Ryan kind of explained some of the same concerns that I'm having that came up from the Arts Council. One of that is the color. And we all love colors, of course, but we do have adopted design guidelines for Mercer Island. And one of those actually talks about bright colors, and fluorescent colors are actually prohibited. So as much as we like color, I don't know that we can do something this bright in that location. But the bigger issue, in my opinion, is the fact that we actually have a policy about donations, which indicate that we are only to accept gifts which are in line with with our master plans, with our pros plan, and the end result that we are seeing here, which is really quite lovely, would not allow the intended use of this area as the off-leash dog area, which Ryan already explained. They also brought up in the Arts Council meeting, I guess. So that's the biggest issue I see here, because regardless of my personal opinion about what I would want to see there, we already have decided in the plan, the Aubry Davis plan, as well as the master or the pros plan, that this is the intended use for that area. And this is in response to a need that we are hearing from the community, and additional off-leash areas were one of the top 10 needs identified in all of that planning process. And I know a lot of work went into those plans, and I'm not sure the community is willing to undo all of that good work to go in a different direction. So I guess that leaves us with a couple of options, which we would want to ask the donor what sounds good to them. One idea is to merge these ideas and blend this concept in a way that would still allow the intended use of this area. And that could be developed over time, but one option is to paint the stacks and install some seating in such a way that would still allow this to be developed as an off-leash area. Another option, which probably would not, might not work out, would be to consider a different location for a similar type of project, maybe an area where people are already gathering. But I understand that the stacks are probably a really exciting idea, and so that second option might not be interesting to the donor. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Vice Chair Struck.
Yes, thank you. Thank you again, Chair. To Commissioner Hayes' comments about the intended use of the dog part, I guess, I'll leave it to the city staff, because I think, Ryan, you kind of said maybe there is some wiggle room there or not, but that's probably not a discussion that we have to get into depth to tonight. But my kind of initial reactions to it, first, I think, as others have suggested, yes, it is kind of an underutilized area, but when you're up there, you kind of feel like you're on the top of the world. And I think that those stacks, however they end up, in terms of color and so forth, will be a quote unquote magnet for, I think, a lot of people that go up there. My thought would be kind of thinking about design and what was presented. I wouldn't have any kind of pavers or walkways. I would let people, that area isn't that big. It's all open. So it's not like you're going to get lost or anything. And, lets people kind of, rather than kind of be funneled to on a particular path, just go wherever you want to go. I think that's part of the exploration. And then I think, as others have mentioned, I think that in terms of kind of seating or kind of, more additional gathering, I would have it much more dispersed and not kind of have one kind of central area. I think that, again, you kind of create a crowding there, if you will. And I think having it maybe smaller areas and so forth. But again, I express my sincere appreciation to the potential donor and the ideas there, because I think that this would be a dramatic improvement to that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cohen.
Don Cohen, thank you. If I were a very generous donor, on this, and it is very interesting and very lovely. If I were a generous donor, I would want to know, before getting into the issue of what the paths should look like, where such and such should be, I'd want to know if there are do or die issues. And the do or die issues that I've heard about, and I don't know that they're necessarily mine personally, are if the color scheme is in fact inconsistent with whatever the color code or whatever it is that Ashley was talking about, that's an issue. The dog park issue is clearly one. And the third one, and this kind of relates to those two, is even if there are workarounds for those, is the community is this going to be a divisive issue on those points, at least for some people, and work at odds to what the donor was trying to accomplish? So I don't know the answers to those, but it sounds like there are some serious issues that could be showstoppers that somebody ought to, I mean, if Ashley is right, maybe they're showstoppers. But I don't know. We haven't heard from, I guess staff hasn't really gotten into it. And I would assume that the donor doesn't want to continue with a design effort if there are serious showstoppers that can't be solved, or if this is going to be suddenly such a divisive thing that it works against the principle that he's trying to accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Struck.
I'll take my hand down, sorry.
Okay, thank you. This is Chair McCarthy. Thank you so much for the presentation. I thought it's a really neat idea, especially the idea, well, first of all, that it has layers that can be built over time. The idea of painting the stacks, and as you said before about color, Guy, it's in the eye of the beholder, and I'm sure, or I imagine that there is a color scheme that could work up there that wouldn't be too bright. And that, I don't know, that would be soothing and contemplative, etc. I do also agree about the idea of the pavers and not having them and just letting people do the space as they want. Sarah had made a really good point earlier today about, if you have the pavers and then people start making their own trails, and then you all of a sudden you have the dirt trails along with the pavers, and that just begins to look odd. But yeah, overall, I think it's a really cool idea. Councilmember Reynolds.
Thanks, Councilmember Reynolds here. I didn't have a vote here, but I just want to make a couple of comments and ask a question. First off, I really do like this. It's bold, but one of the things I learned back in the days when I built a house long ago is if you've got something that you can't make disappear, like the stacks, then you got to make it beautiful and you've got to make it stand out. Kind of halfway disappeared, doesn't work very well. So I kind of think it's a good idea. I do share, though, Commissioner Cohen's comment that the parks are not supposed to be divisive, and I have a feeling this would be something that would trouble a lot of people, and I'm sort of concerned about that and not sure how to get beyond that. But the overwhelming thing I'm left with wondering about is, on the one hand, I really like it. I'd love to say yes, and on the other hand, to Commissioner Hayes' comment, it seems to be contrary to our gift acceptance policy, and we have to figure out how to reconcile those, and I'm not sure how to do that. But then the one question I have is, from an accessibility point of view on the pavers, I'm presuming those are not very wheelchair practical. Does that cause us a problem with our ADA compliance plan? Do we need to build something that's wheelchair compliant, or do we think it is?
When the time is right, I'll take on the ADA thing because we have some thoughts on that. But I also don't want to interrupt. And Jason, if you were going to chime in, go.
I was done rambling, I think, so whoever is appropriate.
I'll go quick, Guy, and then you can address the ADA piece. So the element about the master plan and the donation policy and aligning it, those, I wouldn't consider those immovable objects through this process. We've had some conversations with Berger about what it may take. We've had some early conversations internally about what it may take to amend the master plan or go through that process. And to the commissioner's point, you know, someone who's going to donate something along the lines that we're talking about here absolutely needs to know the process in terms of what's in front of them. So we'll have those conversations. We'll continue to have those conversations. Again, I don't think it's an immovable object. I think it's something that we can work through with the commission support along the way. You know, will it take some time? Yeah, it'll take some time. It'll take some work. But I think that you know, the easy things are done in life, right? So let's tackle some fun stuff and some stuff that's new, and let's make sure we get it right. We had the same conversation with the bike skills area last month, right? We want to get it right, and I think that's the important piece here. So, Guy, I'll let you add to the ADA piece.
Well, if it's okay, can I kind of just hit a couple of points I've heard collectively? Does that work? Is that fair? Cool.
Yes.
So a couple ideas, and Laura, I'm going to lead on this, but if you want to chime in, please do. Super good comments all, and super appreciated. I totally agree that I think that's what when we say support is, if there's deal killers, you know, we don't want to throw good money after bad, good effort after bad. Like, you know, we're okay if there's not support. In fact, that's exactly where we're at. Is there's not support. This is not someone trying to impose this on Mercer Island. And so the goal is that it be supported. I will say, as a park designer, I've never yet worked on a project that everyone agrees with. So if that's the bar, it's dead. I'm just going to say that. I've never reached consensus. Does not mean 100% agreement. But that's up for you guys to navigate. It really is. In terms of the OLA, I can't speak to that piece of the master plan. I would say one of the things that has always jumped out at me, and I could be wrong because I'm not up there as much as you are, is that I frequently see where people are throwing the ball is actually the big open space to the north of the tennis courts is sort of the dog run more than anywhere else. I also think there is some conflicting information in the master plan, which is not a surprise. That's the job of a master plan. A master plan is a roadmap, but it also should not preclude opportunities. But there is, you know, that there's a dot there on the Aubry Davis lid saying interactive installations that enhance play and encourage all ages to engage. Bing, I think we got that. And also provide welcoming and inclusive spaces to express and experience creativity. And I would argue, you could say an off-leash area is neither of those. That's what a master plan does, is it puts things out there and then we get to measure them as we go. In terms of the forms, totally a malleable thing. There does feel like there's an energy there in a place that we want to capture, but I mean, that is just a first crack. It absolutely is. And then the one thing on the path, the easy thing for us to do is like, yeah, we don't really care about that much about the path either. Could totally go away. It's not worth falling on a sword for, but I'm actually not going to say that, in that the intent of the path is not to limit how people walk, but it's like a labyrinth. It's all these never-ending loops. Think how, like, when you come across a labyrinth, you inevitably do start to walk it. Now, half the time you lose interest and then you cross out without following the path. But it's a fun little thing. It's like a board game. Imagine a child out there. And by the way, I'm a child and I'm 52, but it's like a board game and it's giving you options. So the path is not meant to be a limiting thing, but it is not a critical part. So it totally could go away, but I do think it's sort of part of the magic of how you experience it, because people like to follow a path, and especially sort of an absurdly looping one. So it could be, I think it's a cooler, I think it's an element, it's a cooler. Is it critical to design? Absolutely not. I think that's all I had. Oh, and then the ADA piece. I was going to say, I think what I would pitch is this. Lawn is not ADA. Could someone in a wheelchair get across that? When it's dry, sure. After wet, rainy weather, probably not. There's a lot of people who would say, but so so we're doing a lot of work right now that's sort of cutting edge, universal accessibility and experience. ADA is like, ADA is code-based performative thing that is like the lowest rung on the ladder. You are physically able to get here, whether it's an inclusive experience or not. This is me pontificating on universal experience versus just accessibility. So we are so early in this that that is a nugget that needs to be addressed. I don't think it is yet, and it could be. I couldn't say with a straight face that lawn is ADA accessible, but the pavers as we're showing them are not ADA accessible either because they're not continuous. So one of the things we are envisioning is like literally being able to skim off a piece of lawn and then set those. But I would see, and I would probably lobby that we do, that we skim off a path through there to at least some of the gathering areas. Because you don't have to provide, as part of universal experience or ADA, access to absolutely every place. You need to provide a universal experience that is able to all abilities. So making sure that one stack was very accessible and some of those gathering areas. And I would probably recommend it be like a 1/4 inch minus crushed rock, which is ADA accessible. And it is infinitely solvable. I think it is a really fair point, and it is not solved in our cute little early renderings. So I think my answer is there wants to be a meaningful path that is more ADA accessible than what's out there now if we're really going to say this thing is accessible. Irrespective of how you interpret ADA, it would not be a universal experience without that.
So just to get a quick follow-up from Jason, maybe who has a better understanding of the ADA plan than I do. To your point, grass is not ADA accessible either, but it seems like once we create a path, we have some obligation to make it better than it is now. Is that true, or is it just not make it worse?
No, yeah, when we improve a facility, when we touch a facility, we have an obligation to make it ADA accessible. And we have an obligation to meet the ADA requirements in the law that's set forth for that facility. So we would, once we touch it, we have to do something with it.
Okay, well, it sounds like that there's some flexibility here to do something that will address that. That's good to hear.
I did think of one other follow-up piece, and that is color and code. I would speculate that most of your playgrounds on the island do not meet the color requirements. I could be wrong. Laura could tell me because she helped do the color combinations for the Mercerdale Park that just opened up. But and the artwork just to the south of the East Sound Transit, that kind of beautiful colored wing form. Like, I'm guessing that doesn't meet the color limitations on the island. So, and probably a ton of commercial signage doesn't meet those codes either. So I think that might be a code for traditional physical structures, but I would think there would be a way around that because there's color on the island. So because I would say this, here's an opinion. I would think the piece would not achieve what it wants to if the color palette is so muted based on, I mean, there's a reason our cities are beige and gray. And this does not want to be a muted or beige and gray facility. We do feel like color is critical to this. And I think I don't want to be a yes person and say, oh no, any color is fine. I think color is really key to this concept working. I do think it's an integral part. So I don't want to be too passive on the color.
Thank you. Last comments, Commissioner Hay?
Thanks. Yeah, this has been a really nice discussion, and it leaves me wondering if there is a possibility to merge this concept with an off-leash area. I would be really interested if that's a possibility. because that might get us a little bit closer to pleasing a lot of people. And people who are there would be able to enjoy this new painting of the stacks. And we would still be fulfilling that need that so many people spoke up about. And you know, I don't want to get hung up on the policy. Our current policy would not allow us to do this, but policy can be changed. I understand that. But I want to recognize that policies are created for a reason. And especially the work that was put into our master plan and our Aubry Davis plan, and all of the people that spoke up indicating future needs in the parks. That's the area that I want to focus on and make sure that we are still meeting those needs somehow, and hopefully having a beautiful environment to enjoy it in. So merging those two ideas would be really appealing to me, if that's a possibility.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Struck?
Yes, thank you. Just a quick question on the discussion on colors from a minute ago, Guy. All the colors, I think, at least in the slides, were I think pretty much solid. Did you consider like having patterns of different things, or is that a possibility?
Well, they're actually not like the goal is that they not be solid, but they be more like of an ombre that fades from one color to another, or maybe like this is still very early, but we have some character images. Just imagine, you know how when you see watercolors on a paper and they sort of fade from one to another, not in a realistic, you know, and just that's something that we're super intrigued with, is that creation of ombre. And then we have so many choices to keep going, right? But it can be like a computer generated ombre where one color perfectly transitions uniformly around a stack to another. That's possible. And the other one might be like, here's three colors that work amazingly well. Imagine if this stack was watercolor paper and you applied those colors, how would they fade and just merge into one another? So, you know, that's not determined yet. That would be like a future step, but not monochromatic. We think there wants to, and by the way, I should point out that in all of those, a significant, the mention of watercolor is important, because think of watercolor paper, which is always sort of providing a certain amount of white that color exists on. And we think that that's important too. I don't think we're trying to 100% saturate color. But again, these are all things to be developed as we go. But you know, bright painted things has been done, and it can be beautiful here in town. And actually, I'm remembering we're going to put a slide in. We have at the north and south entrances to the new Highway 99 tunnel these bright yellow stacks. We're not proposing bright yellow stacks like that, but they're really cool, and they're so much better than gray. And then they are lighted. We're not proposing lighting the stacks, but they're lighted with RGB LEDs that help change the color. And so they sort of become part of the city's skyline, and it's a really neat thing. Rambling point. Color needs work to be developed, but it doesn't want to be, we would like a richness and not a monochromatic. The movement of from one color to another per stack, we think is part of the beauty of it.
Thank you.
When I looked at them, in my mind, it looked like the sun rising and setting. Is that like what you were looking for? Like the colors of the day on them? That's what I.
Laura, you take this one, because that's too good.
That theme was exactly one of those for that early diagram that we were looking at, like thematic color, and that was an option too. I will just add that the color element is just really, I just want to emphasize it's going to be very intentional. Like, and I mean, if it's color, if it's watercolor, if it's the donor was even open to engaging an artist. There are so many options and opportunities with it, but yeah, what Guy said with engaging that bold color, but it doesn't want to be monochromatic.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Burstein.
Just very quick, I love this project. I think it's fabulous. It's great use of the space, and serving a very clear need. I'm not so much concerned about the color. I am concerned and a little bit conflicted about merging it with a off-leash dog area. I'm a dog owner. I love dog parks. And if we're going to a space to have quiet contemplation or quiet discussion, I think it would be very disruptive with people throwing balls, frisbees, dogs barking, jumping, doing what dogs do around a space and not provide that quiet solitude I think that this is trying to achieve.
Okay, well, with that, I'm going to say thank you so much. And we're going to move on to our next item of business. Thank you so much, Guy and
Thanks
Laura.
all. We appreciate it. And I just want to say regarding the 14-year-old kids, there's not a piece of play equipment I don't climb on, no matter what the sign says. They're built for big guys like me. You can't tell I'm 6'6". No one gets kicked off playground equipment ever. Thanks all.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Okay, let's should we take a pause here and have a 10-minute break, or should we push through? Do we think we're gonna be talking about the Aubrey Davis Park Trail Safety Improvement Project for a long time? Should we have a 10-minute break? Can I get a thumbs up, thumbs down to having a break now? Craig's giving it a thumbs down. Nobody else is giving me any indication, so we're gonna press through. Okay, the fourth item of regular business is the Aubrey Davis Park Trail Safety Improvement Project 30% design revisions. And we are welcoming Capital Improvement Plan Project Manager Paul West.
Thank you, Chair McCarthy. I am going to just make some brief comments, and then I'd like to jump into the points that are in the staff report. So we'll work off of that. I just want to let everybody know that we've received some email comments from commissioners. I have a running list of those comments that we can also work through. So my comments are basically two in general. One is that what would be a great result of tonight would be to get motions passed on these plans, but if that doesn't happen, it's not going to break my heart, because the more important thing is the discussion and the refinement of the design. That said, the charge from City Council was to do a 30% design recommendation. And at 30% design, there's a lot of things that are not decided. So I think it's important to create a balance here of what the commission puts forward as a 30% design. And I think that some of the desires among the commissioners can be accomplished by not tweaking the design so much as providing direction on the design in their handoff memo. For example, making a commentary about what kind of placemaking or what kind of signage or striping or features of the roundabout are important to the commission. But getting very specific is going to be hard to, except on things that really matter at this level of design, or is going to be hard to get to. So I'm going to share my screen. I want to just talk about the roundabout for a little bit, because I want to just go over where we've been and where we are right now. So let's see, where is my share screen? There it is. It's so obvious. So I just want to show you where we started in June. Remember, the April meeting was simply about learning about the feedback from the community on 30% design. Was actually not even 30% design at that point. It was the community's desires for this project and what the design team recommended for addressing those. at the June meeting, we looked at the first 30% design draft, and 30% design had the roundabout as a Schedule B item. It was not in Schedule A, meaning it wasn't going to be the top priority, and it was had a small decorative circle and otherwise was paved. At the July meeting, the roundabout had been changed to Schedule A, meaning that it was now in the first tier of items. And the circle in the middle was much larger and had a curbing. I don't remember if this was grass or asphalt at that point. And then moving down. So then going from July to today, there's been additional evolution in this roundabout design. As you can see, to address the concern about pedestrians and bicycles meeting in counter rotation, the circulation path around this roundabout has been increased slightly from 8 feet to 10 feet, so that if a bicyclist does encounter a pedestrian coming the wrong way, that could be accommodated. And the other piece is that the spur trail from the parking lot has been reduced to 6 feet wide. So that's where we are on the roundabout today. The memo, the staff report contains a bunch of issues that were addressed by the design team in this current design, and addresses some of the other concerns that have been raised in public comment. So I don't want to reiterate that necessarily. I think you've all read that, but I would like to put up the list of comments we've gotten from commissioners by email. We could work through those now, Chair McCarthy, or we could just have a general discussion on the roundabout. What's your preference?
Well, I see Commissioner Cohen's hand up, so perhaps he has some something good to add here. I don't know. I think maybe start with a general discussion and then we can go into these specifics.
Mine was more specific.
Mhm.
So
Is it on this list, Don?
I guess it is, yes. It would be under number 8, probably. What struck me in the staff report, this is Don Cohen, what struck me in the staff report was on page 2, where it says more study by the design team is needed for about the safety of the roundabout. And this is the issue about whether it ought to have planting in the middle, whether it ought to have a curb or not have a curb. So at the moment, as I understand it from Paul's presentation now, it has the curb on it and has something in the middle. So it's, and if the staff, with the help of consultants, hasn't determined whether that general concept of the roundabout is safe, I'm going to have trouble making a decision that, okay, we ought to send this 30% to the council. Why? I mean, it's been 2 months now. Why do we not know whether it's safe or not? I guess. Thank you.
I'm going to stop sharing. So I just want to address that the staff report does say that the design team is confident that a roundabout in this area is a good choice, and that was reinforced by the visit by the WashDOT traffic engineer, who also said he thought this was a good choice in this location.
Yeah, I agree with I'm sorry, I agree with that, Paul. It's the curb issue, because the staff report addressed the thermoplastic issue, it addressed the lighting issue, but it reserved judgment on whether the curb model with landscaping in the middle is safe or not, and said, we need to look at this more. So I'm not addressing the overall appropriateness of having a roundabout, because I agree with your recitation of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just a quick comment. I do remember in July, they described that rolled edge curb as traversable by a cyclist by wheels. So I think that's what they said regarding the safety. Does that sound right? Do you remember that? It's a rolled edge and it's not very high and it's traversable by wheels.
That's correct.
Yeah, I think that they were just confirming the exact height of it. Is that correct, Paul? I feel like that.
Yeah, they
That was
haven't designed the curbing yet, but the intention is that it's rolled or ramped. It's something that a bicycle could roll over without any kind of jarring, impact.
And if I could just chime in real quick, I will just add that the engineer of record is going to be designing a facility that is safe. We won't put forth something that's not safe, and the engineer will not stamp at the end of the day. So we will make sure that that is addressed in the design as we move forward as well. Absolutely, always.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jason. Yeah, so I don't think that it's not that it is a safe thing. It's just confirming the height of it. Commissioner Westberg. You're on mute, Rory.
Therein lies the problem or the issue, because we had some fairly compelling responses from Steve Majewski and from the Neighbors in Motion group that use that regularly and that spoke to concerns about having any sort of an obstacle in the center that would potentially could potentially cause an accident. And I'm heartened by Jason's comment that we wouldn't design, the engineer wouldn't design such a facility, because I certainly don't think it's the intention of this commission to suggest that we do. But getting back to Don's point, I mean, I can see where we may not have solved this issue or this problem at the 30% stage, but when does it get resolved? When do we have a recommendation for whether we have a center point that is simply a different type of scored pavement to signal to a descending cyclist that they're entering a busy area, or we have a roundabout with or without a curb, with central plantings or without central plantings? How do we get to the point where there's a consensus around a design proposal that we can be reasonably certain is safe for cyclists? And that safety issue would depend, in my opinion, on the installation of lighting in that area. That should be part of one of our, in my opinion, one of our givens going forward at 30%, that we will address the design and installation of lighting at that site.
Yeah, I feel like the comments from the bicyclists were because some of the examples had the posts in the middle of them, which is not something that's going to be happening here.
Well, they also had a raised curb, and
yeah,
I recall the consultant saying something around that would be a rolled 4-inch curb.
there's never was going to be a 4-inch curb, I don't believe. But yeah, there's not going to be anything in the middle that they could hit ever. Paul?
Yeah, so no, there's not going to be any, it's whether it's grass or paved, it's all considered to be designed as traversable by a cyclist.
Right.
That's the goal. 4-inch curb, I don't ever remember that being discussed. I think she said 1 to 2 inches, and you have to consider what the, 1 to 2 inches high over what span of curbing. It hasn't been designed yet. So, and it won't be designed, to answer your question, Commissioner Westberg, it will be designed partially in 60% design, and then it'll be mostly conceived in the 90% design. And so it's not going to be something that gets totally worked out at one stage of the design. And it will have iterative review, probably with WashDOT as well as the city.
So is
between
that
those stages.
satisfactory to Commissioner Cohen?
I'm looking back at my iPhone to see what that staff report says, because the staff report doesn't say we need to have more design review about the height of the curbing or something. And it says.
No, it doesn't, Don. It's just that I was at the meeting with with Paul earlier this week with the design team. That's why I knew
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, well, again, I know that Paul and you and other people have done a lot of work on this, but one of the potential options for tonight is for us to vote on whether we're okay with this being sent with our state seal of approval to the city council. And I still haven't found the wording there, but we have something that says more work is needed by the design team regarding the safety of the roundabout. This is, that bothers me. Maybe the wording of the staff report isn't, in retrospect, isn't quite right. But I don't know. So I take everybody at their word that we're not going to do anything that is unsafe, but we all know some of the people in that bike group, and some of them are, people that I know in other parts of my life whose judgment I, normally think is pretty decent.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so the reason why we change, if we look back at the changes of what happened to the roundabout and why the middle of the roundabout was changed to be a planter instead of being concrete was the concerns about the pervious and impervious surface, and to try and minimize the amount of impervious surface that was added to the park. So that was where the idea of making the center not be concrete anymore. And even if it was pervious concrete that was put in the middle, it still counted as impervious surface in the parks. Paul?
I'll add to that going to a grass or ground cover in the middle was the concern that was voiced by citizens at prior to the June meeting, that just a paved surface would provide no traffic control, and that cyclists would see the pavement and just blow right through it. They would not even think about diverting around the roundabout if it was just paved. And so we were responding to citizen comment in making that something just a little bit more of a, I don't know, disincentive to go through the middle of the roundabout. I'll also say that we're weighing some trade-offs here. Is the safety of the diversion caused by the roundabout versus the safety of people coming down that hill at full speed and not having anything that slows them down other than signage. I mean, signage, yes, we're going to have signage. We're going to have three different signs that they see coming down the hill, and pavement markings when they get to the bottom of the hill. And yet we know that there are people that will disregard the signs and the pavement markings and blow right through that intersection. So I think it's understood that I don't think there's anybody in the commission that is thinking we don't need the roundabout. It's just, how much roundabout do we need to get the effect that we want?
Do you have anything additional to add, Commissioner Cohen?
Well, I take it, Paul, this is Don Cohen, I take it that it is still the view of staff and the consultants that a roundabout with a rolled curb, the height of which would be determined later on, but that a roundabout with a rolled curb is the way to go to accomplish what you want to accomplish, and that it can be designed without being unsafe to the normal bicycle rider. Is that true?
I think that's true. I understood that it's in combination with all the warning signs and striping that they encounter prior to encountering that roundabout. Yes.
Yeah.
I think the roundabout alone, no, is not safe. It has to be a part of a system. But yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Westberg.
Well, given that exchange, perhaps then the letter to council should, instead of speaking about unresolved safety issues, should simply address unresolved design issues, because as you pointed out, Paul, the final design is not going to be completed till the 90% planning level, and there are going to be multiple occasions, ideally for public input on that design. So rather than raising the safety flag at this stage, is saying we've had a lot of good discussion. We've had a lot of good exchange about different designs and how they might affect cyclist speed and cyclist safety, and all those need to be incorporated. All that discussion needs to be incorporated into a final design.
Rory, Don Cohen, can you point me toward in the memo?
I don't think you did say it in the memo.
Can you point me to the safety reference subject to, what you just said? You have it at your.
It doesn't say it in the memo, but we could put that in there that we did discuss it like that.
Commissioner Westberg, you've already proposed in a email that we add a phrase, a sentence in the memo would be additional analysis is needed to determine the exact composition and configuration of this feature.
Right.
That may be maybe that covers it.
Yeah. Yeah, and in terms of the thermoplastics, there are different kinds of thermoplastics, and they have ones that have grit in them. I think Commissioner Burstein has some comments on that. Potentially.
Are we finished with
this is Commissioner Burstein. I did some additional research looking at different sources on the internet. I also reached out to the city of Bellevue and the city of Seattle. I've yet to have the discussion with Seattle. That will probably happen next week as the key engineer is on vacation. The city of Bellevue mentioned that they had a lot of complaints prior to the construction, just during the design phase. Same thing we're hearing, people complaining about it being very slippery and uncomfortable. Since they've put down some thermoplastic insulations, they said they've had a few complaints resulting from the discomfort of transitioning from the pavement over them. And as a result, they've reduced the thickness of the thermoplastic insulations, and that seems to have taken care of the objections. They do not have any record of people actually slipping and resulting crashing over the thermoplastic. There haven't been any complaints made, nor any filing saying, I have an injury that was caused by the city. My own research too, is Commissioner Chair McCarthy pointed out, is that the science behind thermoplastic has progressed quite a bit. So not only in being able to manage the thickness of the insulation, but as she pointed out, the grit that is applied in different composites make it far less slippery than when it was first introduced. So I guess the final thing is, given all that, I really don't have an ongoing objection to using thermoplastic.
Thank you. Sorry, I interrupted you, Paul.
That's fine. I felt like we weren't done with the roundabout. And I just, I think the thermoplastic topic is great and important, and there was some differing opinions about it. So it would be good to keep going on that. But do we have anybody else who wants to comment on the roundabout, especially in regard to the center island?
I personally like the idea of having the not cement in the middle and just have the safe curb and low bushes in there, because I do feel like if it was cement in the middle, once the bike riders who were regularly use the trail, that they would adapt and just go right through it. In July, I met Daniel Becker from the Arts Commission there one afternoon, and we spent about an hour and ironically saw Commissioner Burstein out on his bicycle there. And it was really good to get a sense of the space there and spend a little bit of time there just watching how the traffic flowed through the space. And I watched somebody walk through one of the made paths from the parking lot to the ball diamonds. And I watched a bike take the turn really sharply coming from town center way and turning left and up the hill towards the tennis courts, doubling somebody like on their handlebars kind of a thing, not even pausing to see if anybody was coming down the hill. So there definitely is something that needs to be done there in terms of controlling the flow. And I also feel that lighting is an important thing to have there at the roundabout as well, so that people can, have that additional thing in the dark to be able to see what's coming ahead. Commissioner Burstein.
I think just to pile on that, at that intersection, it is a very sharp turn if you're coming up from the town center. And it's also almost like a blind turn. So if we have a design element around visibility, which would incorporate lighting, cutting back of shrubbery, changing the path so that you have more time to actually see oncoming traffic, whether it's pedestrians, dogs, or bikes.
Thank you. Commissioner A. Hey.
Yeah, it sounds like we are hopping around to a lot of different issues here, and that we still have some things that we might have questions about or want to eliminate. And in the interest of time, I do want to be able to get this memo to council, and I would hope that we can achieve that tonight. But I hear that there are still a lot of things that we have questions about. And I wonder if we can just add this in the memo, because we are only at 30%. There are so many specifics that will still be developed over time. So if we can just detail these particular items that are kind of vexing us here, then they know, hey, this is something we need to look a little bit closer at, and that this is going to be developed over time, and kind of draw their eyes to these particular issues. There's a lot here. There's the roundabout, there's the thermoplastic, there is the lighting, but I would suggest that we just do a couple of bullet points under this portion where we say we recommend that the council approve the 30% design as presented with the following considerations. because I don't think that we will be able to get this memo sent if we go into great discussion and try to achieve a solution now, because we're only at 30%.
Yeah, definitely. I do think that there's a couple of things to talk about, just in terms of, like, I'm reading your email earlier today. I don't think, well, I personally don't think that we should be removing the thermoplastic striping, or decreasing the number of signs, or like things like that. I don't feel like maybe we need to be including that. That's not something that we need to be at 30% design. And then the installing the conduit, I do think is worth adding. But in terms of the roundabout, do we have like a general consensus about the, you know, the way that the roundabout is with the planter in the middle? Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways, everybody?
Well, we don't have to specify that.
Yeah.
In
No,
this
we
handout
don't.
memo,
We don't at all.
30%. We can just say, we're gonna have a roundabout, the
Yeah.
final configuration design, we're still
Perfect.
working on, because there's a bunch of issues still.
Yeah,
And-
that's
And
perfect.
likewise with the lighting, we don't have to specify conduit. We can say,
Yeah.
we all agree we need lighting at the roundabout. And we need to design how that lighting will look and
Yeah.
be installed. Conduit is a specific part of the
Yeah,
installation.
yeah, you're right.
Running conduit, but we need a design as far as how the lighting can go in, and to acknowledge that the 30% design envisions installation of thermoplastic striping, and we're still looking at exactly whether that is at the 60% design, we'll have to make a final decision about whether that will go in, where it will go in, what its thickness will be, what its composition will be. We don't have answers to those things yet, but we've all agreed that conceptually those should be part of this design, I
Got
think.
it. Yeah, thank you for that, Rory. Paul, what did you want to say? You're on mute. You're still on mute.
Rory covered it. I think that giving those general direction, or general directions,
I love it.
future design is the way to solve this.
Yeah, I love that. Commissioner Hay.
Yeah, well, yeah, I have a lot of comments about specific items. If we're going to include something about the lighting, I think we should draw attention to the other items that we think need to be fixed or eliminated. So I hesitate to send this saying, we recommend that you approve the 30% design as presented. That is our stamp of approval, saying, accept this design. And I am not okay with this design. I'm not okay with this at all. I shouldn't say at all. But as it is laid out, there are some significant things that need to be changed. I'm not saying I want to delay on our end, but I think we have to detail this in the letter. And then if this is a possibility, I think we've got to lay this out as some bulleted items to draw their attention to it, because that's our job. We're supposed to be reviewing this before it gets to council. And if it comes to them and says, approve this as it is, why would they look any further? Hopefully, I'm sure they would, but that we just can't send this through saying accept it as it is, or right?
Well, I think what Rory was suggesting is that there's the things that need to be looked at further. So not saying that we approve this as is, but say these are things that are still being worked on. Isn't that what you were saying, Rory? Yeah, but not put specifics into it. Just say that there's things that are that still need to be worked out onto it.
You should put that in there, but I think we should say what these items are and allow council to look at it as they wish. But I do think we should mention things like lighting, which we've all talked about, a lot of us have talked about. And, are we going to spell those things out?
Yeah, Rory was, we could spell out what we are, what is still being figured out for sure. But just to reference your email, like I don't like the decrease the number of signs to essential safety and or regulatory signage only. I think that that's what we already have done in it. That's already been done. The fun signs have been taken out of this, of the 30%, and that's been taken over or put to the Arts Commission, those kind of things. That's correct, Paul?
The fun signs are out, but I think Commissioner Hay is referring to the wayfinding signage at West Mercer Way, where we would direct through bikers onto North Mercer Way, or on the loop. I think that, I guess I should not speak for Commissioner Hay, but that's what I understand, because the traffic regulatory signs are, I think that's evident that that's essential to safety.
Yeah, those are essential to safety. For the wayfinding signs, I do think that we need those for people who aren't familiar with Mercer Island and the bike. People like to bike around the island. Ideally, we would prefer that they go around the north and then come back around, so they stay on the inside where there's more shoulder for the bikes. That was one of the reasons for the wayfinding sign at West Mercer Way. When I was looking at it back at it today, and in my mind, the wayfinding signs were west of West Mercer Way, not east of it. And it looked to me when I was looking, and maybe I was just backwards, that they were on the east side of West Mercer Way before you start going up the hill into the park. But we can look at that. But that's why those signs, or the wayfinding sign, is there. That's one sign.
Right. Well, my comment was about the wayfinding signs, but also the number of signs, because we saw it increase from June to this most recent version that we're looking at. And now, so a previous version, I don't think we saw very many signs at all in that strip from the roundabout to the bathroom. And now there's 10 of them. There's, every corner of the roundabout, I think, or 3 of the 4 corners of the roundabout, you're in the roundabout, go this way. When approaching the roundabout is necessary. Okay, roundabout coming up. But then when you get into that space and you've got colorful thermoplastic, you've got yellow lines, you've got signs on every corner, you've got people you're looking for, it's just getting really chaotic and out of control in that area. And then you keep going and it's like you're approaching another convergence zone. There's pedestrians here. I mean, the number of signs in that space, if you look at sheet 11, page 55, is really wild. So my point about the signs was not only wayfinding, but just limiting the number of signs to what is going to be efficient and safe. And adding signs at every corner of the roundabout is just bizarre, because nobody's going to be looking at the signs. And about the wayfinding signs, we're proposing bike route and Mercer Island loop, which is confusing. Both of them sound like a bike route. People who are riding, they know where they're going. They know, for the most part, if I'm on a bike, I know my path. I know if I'm going one way or on the road. It's pretty clear when you're crossing the street, I'm going to go on the path or I'm going to go on the road. I don't think those signs are necessary. And so I really, I don't want to send this off with $30,000 worth of signs, which is 10% of the budget. Like, is that what we're trying to achieve? To put tons of signs up in the park? Safety, yes, but signs every 100 feet, what do we, I think we need to be clear that needs to be part of the future further design.
Well, let's put a statement into that effect and in the memo, because there was a qualifier in the plan that said, you know, that this isn't necessarily the final wording, or so we can just say that the wording and number of signs to be incorporated in this remains to be determined after future review.
Yeah, I think that needs to be able.
I mean, I don't look at anything that's in a 30% plan as being the final word on that particular item. It's 30%. It's not, you know, it's not a done deal at that point.
Paul, what were your comments?
Yeah, oops. Yeah, so my comments are along the lines of what Rory just said, that we could say something like that the commission recommends that the number of signs be those essential for safety. And that's kind of a guiding principle for, you know, the remaining design. And I just want to caution that, you know, especially something like signs where there's very clear traffic standards like MUTCD and AASHTO, you really don't want to get into specifying that. That's exactly what we hire the professionals to do. They know how to follow the standards so that our liability is covered.
Thank you. Vice Chair Struck.
Yes, thank you. So process question for Paul or Jason, just to kind of clarify. So when we recommend this 30% design, maybe it's tonight, maybe it's, you know, next time or whatever. So it goes to council, let's say, you know, they approve it. The question is, you know, and then there's a 60% check-in. Will a 60% design come back to the PRC and we'll have a discussion kind of like we are tonight based on the 60% design, or is that wrong?
That's maybe a Jason question.
Given the discussion this evening, so historically speaking, most projects wouldn't come back as 60% design, but given the discussion tonight and given some of the concerns that are raised from a handful of commissioners, we can certainly bring back the 60% design back to the commission if that's the request of the commission. It's another meeting, it's another touch point. There's no concern on my end from doing that. It's just it may add another meeting along the way, which is perfectly fine and acceptable. Given the questions that are being raised tonight, that's perfectly acceptable. So we can come back as 60%.
Yeah, and thank you for that, because I think the rules of engagement are really key here, in the sense that if this was the last bite at the apple, I think we'd probably spend a lot more time on specificity and really honing in as much as possible. If you're saying we can give kind of general direction, let's look at signs as an example, and it comes back at 60%, and we could say, well, wait a minute, that seems to be way too many, and so forth, given the standards and all that kind of stuff. But I guess that's something that we should just understand before we kind of, you know, go forward too much further. Thank you.
Thank you. City Council Member Reynolds.
Hi, Councilmember Reynolds. Yeah, what I'm hearing here tonight is some lingering concerns, but they don't sound like any concerns that need to be locked down before the 30% design. You just need to be careful that you don't make a vote that is interpreted as that everything's been agreed to. So I think the issues that you're raising are things probably the council is going to wonder about as well, and may have an opinion and may want to know whether you're thinking about them still. It seems to me like the general idea should be, let's add a paragraph to the memo that says, you know, we still have a few open issues that we're talking about. We'd like it to come back to the Parks Commission for a 60% design to refine and finalize those choices, and then just leave it at that. And if it makes the commission happy to itemize what those issues are, I think that's okay, but I don't think it's probably productive to decide all of them tonight. I don't think it's necessary to decide all of them tonight. That's my view.
Thank you. Commissioner Cohen?
Yes, Don Cohen. I'm convinced by the comments of Ashley and Rory and the council member but I don't think we should be drafting by committee tonight. I think the staff should go back. There are things in addition to the paragraph that Craig was suggesting that, I mean, this memo now says, we are pleased to present the recommendation of the, of the planning of the Parks and Rec Commission on the 30% design, and we recommend approval of parentheses. Oh, by the way, there are 6 issues that still are, so I think there's wording tweaking that needs to be done, plus adding, if that's the desire of the commission, adding a list of some of the things that are of particular concern, because otherwise we're being asked to vote on, we're recommending, this thing says, we're recommending the design in Exhibit A. And I'm not prepared to do that. Ashley isn't prepared to do that. I don't know about, maybe some people are, but, on Peter's point, we had this discussion about whether it would normally come back to the commission. We've had this several times before relating to bike skills area. And in some instances, we did specifically say in motions and the design to come back to the commission. So that's consistent with Jason's comments.
Okay, I agree. So where we're going to leave it for tonight then is that we will have the staff continue to work on the memo, and we will revisit at the October meeting to finalize and vote on it. Does that sound agreeable to everyone? Thumbs up? Perfect. Okay, so that's where we're at with that, Paul.
Thank you.
Is we will continue to work on the memo and bring it back at the October meeting.
Can I ask just a clarifying question?
Yeah.
Then? Will that mean that the 30% design document as presented to the group tonight will not change? What we're going to focus on is the memo, or are we going to also invite or encourage changes to the plan?
I was not planning to change the plan.
Okay.
I'm correct. I have corrections in for 2 items. One is the center of the island on the plan is specified right now as asphalt. It should say grass. I mean, remember, keeping in mind that this is just what the design team is recommending right now. This is not set in stone. And then the other, there's another error in, mislabeling. So yes, essentially it'll be the same design.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Cohen, did you have anything to add? Okay, Commissioner Hay?
No, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that we're considering these things, but I am wondering if there's any way that we can make edits to the memo which would incorporate these concerns and allow us to make a motion on it tonight. And the reason I say that is because if we are going to be working on this memo so that we can do this in October, but nothing in the design is fundamentally going to change, we're not really that different in a month than we are now. It's just what we put in the memo. So I'm just wondering if we can get to that point of making a motion tonight, if it's just rewording of the memo.
Well, we could try to do that.
I have a list of the things, the directive for the future design that would come from the PRC. So I could read those out and see if we've captured everything. That would be one step forward, but I'm not sure if that gives you enough specificity of what the memo would say, because I've heard other things about, what, for example, what Commissioner Cohen said that might need more wordsmithing.
Do you have the memo that you can bring up and include, with the changes that we're suggesting or that we're commenting on?
Yes, I have the memo. Let's see, share screen. So here we are. And there's a couple of items that I've added in that Commissioner Westberg had recommended on the roundabout and on the low-level fencing that will channel pedestrians. Those were things that he emailed us. I included those, but those could be taken out. I think where these items would probably go is something before the conclusion. It would be next. It would be like a next step section where we'd say the commission recommends continued design, and with these bulleted, considerations that the roundabout needs additional design, thermoplastic striping needs additional investigation to ensure the proper material is used. Adding lighting should be explored at minimum, providing conduit. The number of signs should be those that are essential for safety. And it could say and wayfinding, but that's for you guys to debate. And then the final bullet point would be we recommend this design that the council return this design, or the council direct us to return to this design at 60% for review.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And does the memo have the dates in it now for the virtual open house and the survey?
It doesn't. That needs to be added.
Okay.
There were also a couple of commissioners who were interested in reducing the width of the spur path to 6 feet. So that might be another one that we would like to list on there. And again, this isn't us agreeing one way or another on it.
Yeah, that is it. Part of the plan that is on the plan currently, isn't it, Paul?
That's correct. So the plan as it stands has a 6-foot wide path.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, great. Thanks.
Yeah. Sorry, Commissioner Cohen.
Yes, Don Cohen. I'm not going to focus on the list of the things that that are still in flux, but what's the easiest way to revise the wording of the first paragraph, the third paragraph, and the last paragraph so that it isn't that we're recommending the 30% design? Is it something that in each of those places says generally, this is the bike skills, Dean Park bike skills area, motion stuff, generally, or something like that, or subject to the, further review and analysis described in this memo or something. This is my issues now are wording. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is that the council will do next once it gets a memo that recommends the exhibit A subject to potentially 5 or 6 changes.
What if it's not the Parks and Rec Commission is not recommending the 30% design, but has reviewed the 30% design and recommends that the design process continue, or that the design is sufficiently has sufficiently been developed that it can proceed to 60% or something like that. I don't exactly know. So then, in other words, you're just saying that yes, that it can go forward. But
that kind of wording addresses my issue.
Yeah, I like that as well. Rory, you're really good at wordsmithing these things. Oops, you're sharing your screen still, Paul.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm prepared to do that right now, right at this minute, but with that memo, but I I agree with the thrust of this by simply saying that, that the 30% design presents a plan that has broad agreement from the commission, subject to these additional issues that we would expect to be addressed with further planning, and that we would anticipate reviewing the 60% design document when it's available. So something along those lines. In other words, we're not buying every detail, every sign in every place, every stripe or whatever, but generally speaking, the 30% design has followed our discussion and input pretty well. There's still some devil in the details that has to be worked out. But in broad strokes, we're getting there. And we expect to be involved as the planning process continues.
By stating it that way, do we need to call out things still, or?
Well, we can call out examples of areas where, we're looking toward the consultant to provide additional refinement or additional information. Actually take those off a minute ago, the design of the roundabout, the design of the lighting, the thermoplastic placement, the number and content of the signs throughout the length of the project area. I don't know if there's others, but those are 4 that have been discussing.
Yeah, I like that. Does anybody else have anything that they want to add?
Yeah, I would like to add the concrete surface decorative treatment.
Can you speak to that, Paul?
That I think we understand that is not essential to the project. It is something that the design team recommends. It sets the concrete apart a little bit more from the asphalt path. It gives it a little bit more of a feeling of place, but it is not essential for there has to be some kind of concrete can't be poured in one slab. It has to have some kind of scoring in order for it to expand and contract. So there's going to be some kind of scoring, but it could not be, could be just the minimum amount needed versus the decorative scoring that they're proposing. I don't know if it removes the entire cost, but it removes most of the cost probably.
Okay.
And that cost is $14,000.
Commissioner Burstein?
So I just posted in chat perhaps wording for the opening paragraph. And it reads, the Mercer Island Parks and Recreation Commission presents the Aubry Davis Park Trail Safety Improvement 30% design. Our recommendation is to proceed to a 60% design phase with further review by the Parks and Recreation Commission at the conclusion of that phase.
I like that. Thumbs up, thumbs down, everybody.
Well,
Okay.
we'd have to do a little bit of tweaking of the 3rd paragraph and the last paragraph, which recommends the 30% design, right?
Yeah, this is just the opening paragraph.
Yeah, I'm okay with the opening paragraph, but there's those other 2 areas that need some tweaking also. Maybe Paul, you can quickly.
Yeah, let me look at that again.
And I personally would favor listing the examples of some of the areas, but.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be hard to get to a complete document tonight. I'm wondering if it's possible to take an action and have the chair and vice chair approve the final memo.
I'd be okay with that.
Okay, let's,
I would have before the bike skills area.
well, Don, why don't you be
report.
part of the group that,
Yes.
that looks at it? So I propose that, Peter, Don, and myself, approve the final memo, if that works for everybody. So can we see a show of hands on that? Or like thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever?
Sorry, are we accepting these changes that we've made tonight, or we're saying that there might be more changes?
And then to put it, like, to do the final tweaking of it. Before it goes to council, but we can make the list of, Ashley's just suggested some wording, make a list of the things that we think are concerns, like just the bullet points now, and then we will tweak the memo further to that.
Jody, this is Don.
Yes.
I would suggest that you substitute Ashley for me because she's much more, my stuff is just minor wording stuff at this point, and I'm okay from the minor wording point of view. I'm okay with a delegation, a delegated authority to finalize it. It's the listing that I think is something that Ashley is appropriately involved in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So why don't we get a list of who we want? And if that is okay with Ashley, that's okay with me. If she is included and not Dawn. Do you want to be included in the final memo wording?
Sure, yeah. I just want to make sure that we capture everything that people have mentioned tonight. So I'm curious if all commissioners are happy with that plan for 2 or 3 of us to create the final memo and send it off. Are we happy?
Yeah.
Well, that's a question I guess we should really make sure that we're comfortable with, because I think the last time around, I think there were more than one commissioner I thought felt that, they would have perhaps done it a little bit differently. So, and quite frankly, this is Commissioner Vice Chair Stark. I mean, I would be happy to step off and have Don, because I think, from a kind of a word, not only wordsmithing, but just kind of the tenor and tone, I think he's brought up some very good suggestions, and I know we have to limit it to 3. So I'm happy to step off and have Ashley and Don and the chair.
Okay.
Paul and Rory, are you happy with that plan?
Yeah, I can live with that.
Completely.
I can live with that.
Okay, let's do that then. And then, so what were the 4 bullet points, Rory? If you can just write those down.
Well,
And
the four that I remembered were the, and these are broad, we're not trying to solve the problem, but it was the roundabout, the lighting, the use of thermoplastics, and then the sign numbers and composition. And then Ashley had raised a question about what type of concrete, what kind of treatment the concrete was going to get. And I don't think we don't really have a final description in this of what that would look like. And how that, I know we've had discussions in earlier meetings about color and not doing something really bold and, wild and crazy, ever keeping it in more muted tones and things like that. But I don't know now if we're talking about something entirely different. So,
yeah.
So that's another issue that's outstanding that would need to be, I guess, clarified down the road.
Right. Yeah, it's because it's still slightly over budget. And Paul is saying that to just do not the decorative, to just do the score cutting, it would bring it down.
Yeah.
Well,
I know in their project that they did over in Victoria, there's concrete areas where people gather for the bus stops or anything, but there's no coloration to the concrete. It does have some scoring in it. So that's a possibility. I think it was the coloration that people were reacting to, as I recall.
Yeah, and that's been taken out.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reason I brought up the decorative surface treatment was because that was something we heard in the previous meeting was completely optional. And you would still have a surface which would match the connecting surfaces to the area they're proposing to do this decorative treatment. So we are hearing that this is completely optional to add a decorative surface treatment. And if we eliminated that decorative treatment and just did regular concrete instead of decorative concrete in that particular area, it would bring it almost to exactly on budget. So that was the reason I brought that up to list as something to consider in the next phase of design.
Right.
Yeah,
Are there
I
any-
think
are there
we can
any
add
other
that
things?
as something to consider.
Yeah,
For
any
sure.
other things that should go on that list? We have, so that's five items that we would highlight in the memo.
Yeah. Roundabout lighting, thermoplastics, signs, treatment of the concrete. Okay. Do you still have your hand up for a reason, Commissioner Vice Chair Struck?
Yes, I was just going to suggest, I think, Paul West had kind of a list of all the comments that people had submitted. I would just, have the subcommittee just go down those and make sure that those are, incorporated in one fashion or another. You don't have to list them all perhaps, but, group them accordingly. Thank you.
Okay, that's a good idea. Commissioner Cohen?
I don't think we should approve this tonight. If we're going back and looking, I'm not saying I disagree with what Peter just said. We're going back and making sure that we're taking into consideration all these things. We got moving target here. I'm uncomfortable with a subcommittee of 2 or 3 doing something that we don't see again. This is extremely important, as we all agree. We haven't heard staff say that time is urgent. And I think we should go back, do it more deliberately, get it, and have buy-in by the commission as a whole on what it is that's proposed and what we're asking, what we're recommending to the council.
Well, I think we are basically recommending the memo just slightly tweaked and to add something that says things that we think deserve additional investigation are these 5 things that we've listed. That's the only difference to the memo that we're making.
Unless there's something in the comments that we may have missed, and there may be some other things now that we go back and look at the memo in light of these discussions. I think delegating finalization of a memo should only, as a general proposition, should only be done when time is really of the essence. And I don't hear that here. And there's a lot of moving parts still going on, even though we have consensus generally on with the way it's headed.
Well, somebody's got to do the drafting. So why not have the committee do the drafting and just send what they come up with out to the full commission? And let the full commission take a look at it and send any comments back.
Can't do that.
And then why can't we do that? And then we can address it for approval at our next meeting.
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
at least.
That's fine. I thought
We'll at least have gone through a drafting process, and we won't try to do a group edit.
Yeah, well, I thought you were suggesting that we sort of give a thumbs up by email. No, but that's what I think ought to be done. Whether it's staff doing a draft or a subcommittee or whatever it is, or both.
Well, I like the idea of a subcommittee doing it. And and you're going to be on the subcommittee, Dawn, with Ashley and I.
Okay.
And we will get this sorted out, and then we'll tweak it, and we will vote on it at the October meeting. Just writing this down.
Would we need to do that if we already have decided that this subcommittee would create the final draft? I thought that's what we were proposing, is that the subcommittee of 3 would create the final draft and that would go off. So we wouldn't need.
I changed my mind on that one.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't
so
have a veto, but I changed my mind.
What we'll do is, the subcommittee will, do the draft. We'll look at the bullet points that Paul has and, do the memo, send it out, and then we can vote on it in the October meeting. Because yeah, we can't do it by committee. And it's already 8 o'clock now, so.
We are tasked with a motion tonight, right? A motion is needed.
Yeah. Okay, so can I have somebody make a motion to create a subcommittee, including myself, Commissioner Cohen, and Commissioner Hay, to work on the draft memo to go to the city for the 30% design of the Aubrey Davis Trail Safety Improvement Project?
This is Vice Chair Struck, so moved.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Westberg. City staff, can I have a roll call, please, for the motion?
Yep, sorry about that. I'm coming. Here I come. Here I
That's okay. Did you get that?
I did.
Okay.
So Chair McCarthy,
Aye.
Vice Chair Struck,
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen,
Aye.
Commissioner Westberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Markson. Oh, she's gone. Sorry. Commissioner Burstein,
Aye.
Commissioner Hay.
Aye.
All right, and the motion passes. Okay, the fifth item is the bike skills area update, and we welcome Jason Kintner, Chief of Operations, and Elaine Summergren, Deputy Public Works Director.
Good evening, Jason Kinner, Chief of Operations and Public Works Director. I will be very brief since it's here to you this evening. So area, following the last commission meeting, we did go to the council in July and sought an appropriation request for $75,000 to begin the design procurement service process for moving the bike skills area to Dean's Children's Park. The council approved that, and last month we were able to get the RFQ on the street to solicit RFQs or statement of qualifications from qualified firms. And myself, Elaine, Sam Harb, our Parks Maintenance Manager, as well as the subcommittee, Commissioner Bernstein, Vice Chair Struck, and Chair McCarthy, all participated in an interview today for a consultant for the project. And I'm happy to report that we have a preferred consultant or vendor identified through this process. And we are already working on trying to get a scope of work completed and a contract underway to begin the design process for the bike skills area. Additionally, Elaine has been working behind the scenes to get our survey complete, a topographic survey, and some other work to help jumpstart this work. So when we do land the consultant for the design services, we already have information that can be shared with the primary consultant to help with their design process. So that's all good news. We're working quickly behind the scenes. We're still targeting that November 3rd date to come back to the Parks Commission with a 30% design update. And we will continue to keep it keep the commission updated as we move forward with this process. But that is the latest and greatest, unless Elaine has anything else to add. How was that for a nice brief report?
You get an
That
A.
was perfect. Thank you. Commissioner Cohen, did you have a comment about that, or?
Oh, I have a question,
Okay.
like Don Cohen to Jason or Elaine. So at what point will we be trying to solicit community input on this? And
Great question. That was part of the RFQ package, making sure that the consultant had community engagement as part of that portfolio. So once we get a contract in place with our design team, we will outline what that community engagement looks like. We will ask to do it early and throughout the entire process. And so let us get the contract in place, the statement of work complete, and then I will be happy to share that engagement platform and schedule with the commission once we have it. But we are looking to move quickly and get it done early throughout the rest of the process.
I will say that one of the earliest parts of that process, Commissioner Cohen, is going to be identifying stakeholders, interested parties. And so that's work that staff will be doing early on in this process also, to be able to communicate to the consultant so that that work can get underway as quickly as possible.
This Don Cohen, just so I don't forget, you probably saw a letter to the editor of the Mercer Island Reporter a couple of weeks ago from the woman who had emailed some of us earlier on. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Jason and Elaine. The sixth item of business is the 2022 planning and meeting schedule update. And we welcome back Ryan Daly.
Great to be back. We only have 3 more meetings till the end of the year. So pretty crazy. The only change that we have coming forward was one you just talked about tonight, and that is adding the Aubry Davis Trail Safety Improvement Project conversation again to the October meeting. So I will get that updated. More than likely, I will remove the special usages of parks conversation that we were going to have. That's probably better served in 2023, honestly. So I will talk with Chair McCarthy and Vice Chair Struck as we start the work of developing that planning schedule for 2023. So gosh, we're already talking 2023. Exciting stuff, but thank you, Chair McCarthy.
Thank you. And then our 7th item of business is if any commissioners have any reports or any work plan updates. Vice Chair Struck.
Yes, I just wanted to report that this is just anecdotally, but it appears that the usage at the Mercer Island Library has increased over the summer. I noticed, and I've talked to others as well that are frequent visitors to the site or to the library, users. I guess patrons, I guess is the name we use. But the parking lot is generally a little bit fuller than it used to be a few months ago, and people using the library are. So I think hopefully with school starting back, that will continue to increase. That's all I've got.
That's awesome. Thank you, Commissioner Burstein.
This is Commissioner Burstein. I just want to point out that having participated in the summer celebration fireworks, it was a tremendous event and very enthusiastically supported by everybody cheering throughout the fireworks. And also I had sent out a email earlier right after. I was in the park the next day, and Sam Harb and his team did a masterful job cleaning up the park, and it didn't look like there was an event practically at all the next day. They did a fabulous job. Also, Shakespeare in the Park was very well attended. There were great performances by Wouldn't Know, always a gem for the island. And lastly, music in the park. They were crowded events. We went to every one, and Katie Herzog did a tremendous job lining up bands that I think were well received by everybody. And they just did a great job. So it was a great summer.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Commissioner Hay.
I agree with Commissioner Burstein. The summer celebration was amazing. My kids said it was the best fireworks show ever. So nice work. And one quick update that the Mercer Island Preschool Association, MIPA, in partnership with the City of Mercer Island, is hosting another blood drive on Thursday, October 6th. And it's going to be held at the beautiful community center. So just a thank you to the staff for making that first one possible. It was hugely successful, completely full. And a thank you for their blood, sweat, and hopefully no tears that made that possible. We had a council member donate. We had a staff member from Parks and Rec donate. So thank you, and roll up your sleeve if you feel like it on October 6th.
Thank you for sharing that date with us. Yeah, I agree. The summer celebration was, it was great. Walking through and seeing the lineup at the Touch a Truck. It was really sweet to see the all ages that were lined up at the fire truck to do the fire hose game. And I love driving by Mercerdale Train Park and seeing how much usage it is getting after being closed for so long. So if we're all done, I will say that as a reminder, the next regular Parks and Recreation Commission meeting is October 6, 2022 at 5:30. The time is now 8:10 and the meeting is adjourned. However, as reminders as commissioners, please stay seated until the city staff has terminated the Zoom broadcast. Good evening and stay safe and healthy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.